position, followed by who is the purchaser. Who are you aiming at? Who's the potential purchaser for these properties? What would they look for? What would they want? So there's no set formula. The formula is based on where you're positioned and who's the purchaser.
Hi, I'm Rob Langton. Our interview series delves into the lives of Australia's most respected property thought leaders and decision makers and uncovers what makes them tick. This is The Interview. This morning's guest is Danny Avidan, founder and CEO of Dare Property Group. Danny, thanks for your time this morning. Let's start with your upbringing. You went to Vaucluse Boys High School. Tell us about Danny as a student.
Danny as a student didn't pick up too many books. So I was a new immigrant to Sydney. I didn't command the lingo, and so I was considered a bit backwards. I utilized that, didn't pick up a book, had a great time at school, and in year 10, teacher's suggestion, I pulled out of school. I guess I had to make some money, so I took all kind of odd jobs. It was a great time in my life, and until for a couple of years, I traveled, I worked, and I did really well in every job I had. I really enjoyed, and I did really well. Ultimately, I realized that I was streetwise, but an illiterate one at that, and that's what made me go back and study. So a couple of years later, TAFE did year 11 and 12 in 1 year, then went to university where I did economics and law. I really enjoyed it. So that's my academic background. Didn't start off too well, but ended up okay.
Finished well, as you mentioned there, Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Law from Macquarie University. Correct. What interested you about those fields? Why did you choose them?
Well, law was because I really wanted to command the lingo, and I also I was interested in law. I was interested in learning how to appraise, analyze, strategize, and express such. And a part of being a salesman is knowing the art of the deal and negotiations. Certainly helped me there, helps me now. It was a great education. I really did it because I enjoyed it. At one stage, I thought of practicing, and later on, I decided that I might not. I didn't like the experience, so I went into business.
And what was your career in business following your university studies?
Well, in the course of university, I tried my hand at a few things. Self-employment kind of things. One of them was a nightclub, which I opened at 21 with no money and no knowledge, but I had a great story to tell, and that was a lot of fun. Later on, I became an agent who sold ladies' blue rinse dresses to ma and pa retailers on a commission base, and I did really well. That was kind of my affiliation with the rag trade, although my parents had a fashion shop, and I had that in the background. So I got into fashion simply as a salesman, and after a quick stint at practicing law, I decided to go and try my hand in manufacturing myself. And I did just that.
And that was with the Discovery Group, I presume, of which you were the CEO for some 31 years before selling to Myer in 2014. Tell us about the Discovery Group.
Well, I started, I basically sold my car at $15,000. That was my capital, which was a good amount then. And I started the Discovery Group, and I started pretty much manufacturing mature ladies' dresses, which was the type of product that I was selling as a student. There was not a lot of fashion content in it, but it was discovering what making products for a good price that ladies wanted to buy. And I just grew the business enormously, and I was selling to everyone from Best and Less and Kmart to Myers and Davy Jones, and thousands of Ma and Pa boutiques across Australia and New Zealand. And I was going very well and enjoying life doing that until I met the love of my life, my best friend, and my creative inspiration, Charlie Brown, and was employed by Howard Charles at the time. She got fired for dating me by her boss. Ultimately, I started Charlie Brown. We obviously got married, And then later on, I also bought Howard Showers off her old boss who fired her as part of the settlement of the case and gave that to her. And so I really, and she started a label for me called Lily, which was very groovy and cool for the kids. So I really started focusing on more cool contemporary fashion that made the masses hip, always keeping in mind the masses because I always believe in volume. And later on, one of our great triumphs was the Hollywood fashion tape, which we took to 40 countries and made it a global brand, world's most expensive sticky tape. And that was only a question of marketing and packaging, etc. So we had a great run. We had a great time. I loved fashion. We traveled the world every couple of months, and it was great.
And before we get into property development, how have you seen the fashion industry change over time?
I remember reading a book called The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman, which basically said that unless you can be globally competitive, you will lose your domestic positioning and brand equity. And that made me think and understand. And as the world brands came into Australia, the domestic market watered down in terms of its importance. And I see that now with the online business, with all the global players being here, and pre-COVID, everyone traveling, I find it a very tough market to be in, very difficult to be in. And I decided I had to get out. It was just a strategy as to how to get out. It took me a couple of years to get out. And I don't see the fashion industry ever not existing domestically, but certainly it's a much smaller cake.
If you were sort of an independent retailer today or an independent fashion owner, what do you think the future of retail is? Is it bricks and mortar? Is it purely online? Or is it a hybrid model, sort of omni-channel?
I think it's omni-channel. It's about both. It's about having, firstly, unique and desirable products that are not available to the consumer already at hand. So having a point of difference and having a great delivery of your offer to the consumer, be it brick and mortars or be it online. And as I said, you really need to be in both in order to be significant and to trade with a lot of social media content and following, etc. So yeah, I think there's still an opportunity there. I just don't think it's as big a scale as it was.
Now, following your career in the fashion industry, you then started RDA Property Group circa 2011. Where did your interest in property development come from?
I always liked property, and I always bought property. So I had several properties that I had bought but kept. I just haven't developed. I haven't developed them itself. Whilst I was in the reg trade, I started building houses in Queensland. We had a holiday house there. And I teamed up with a partner, and we started building houses and selling houses in Sorrento. That was good. You know, we bought houses, land packages for $500,000. We'd spend $500,000 to build and soft costs, and then we'd sell them for $1.5 million, and that was good. We were doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the Gold Coast had a slide. But I was enjoying the process. I started renovating a couple of blocks that I owned here for myself, which I still own. And then I started developing. First project was the Carlton in Vaucluse in 2012. I acquired that. I just started slowly, one at a time, and I tried to have a niche. I decided I needed to have a niche, so it's about the marketing and packaging. I went pretty much into the affordable luxury area for starters in accommodation.
And then since that time, it seems like you would have moved into the sort of high-end luxury boutique style developments. Yes, what was the impetus behind that?
It was just the market. It's about the positioning. I have a real love for detail and quality, and I just tried to expand and improve the offer in accordance with the market. So, you know, if I was building in the south, I wouldn't be doing what I'm building in the east. It's about the positioning. So properties like Bronte Place, which are developed in McPherson Street, Bronte, or Calypso now in Fletcher Street, Tamarama, they're incredible sites and they call for quality. And yeah, I went all out, especially with Calypso. And I hope to repeat this concept with new sites that I'm currently working on.
And just on that, what are the fundamentals you look at and analyse when looking at a development site?
Position, followed by who is the purchaser. Who are you aiming at? Who's the potential purchaser for these properties? What would they look for? What would they want? And it's very much with them in mind that I developed the property. So there's no set formula. The formula is based on where you're positioned and who's the purchaser.
And how are you finding the current market from a site acquisition standpoint? Is there enough supply?
There's a lot of supply, but it's, the numbers have to work. It's property development is a mathematical formula that you have to work with if you're going to survive. And it is always tough to find a great site at a price that can work. And Calypso was one of those. But it took me a while to get it. It wasn't easy. I had to chase the vendor for some time to get him to sell to me. But I'm glad he did, and I think he's glad he did, and it's going to be great.
Just on sites, to finish up, do you go directly to the vendor, or do you prefer to purchase in an off-market forum? Do you ever purchase on market?
So when I bought the old Legion campsite in 81 Favreau Street, which was a 53 apartment development with 4 large retail offerings on the ground. There were 200 bidders in the room, and I just did my numbers and I worked out exactly what I can pay for it, which was a record at the time, but I knew the market was rising and I was able to buy it. On the other hand, with Calypso, it was an off-market situation that I worked, and I purchased that through a very good agent who was negotiating the sale for me. It took him 2 years to get the sale across the line, but he did, and it was great.
Tell us about Calypso. What are you aiming to achieve there?
I'm aiming to, it's the gateway of Tamarama. The views are incredible, and I'm aiming, and I have been successful. I mean, we've sold half of it already. I'm aiming to attract a very upscale customer. Some of them are young kids who bought in there. We haven't sold the penthouse yet. We'll probably sell it when we complete, because I think it'll really be a showcase to show off. But I'm aiming to deliver all the Nick and Tony's, a great luxury, smart home. It's got every luxury detail that you can imagine. I'm working with a great builder on it. I'm working with a great team. The interior was done by MIM, Interiors of Melbourne, who typically does luxury houses, although she does do some very luxury apartment blocks. And she went to great detail with me. I really enjoyed the experience of working with MIM. And we just kept working on more and more details. We did it during COVID. Originally we were going to go to market much earlier, and suddenly there was no market to go to. So I actually rang up Miriam at MIM and said, I think we should work harder and do more work on this. Let's really go all the way on this project. We've got the time now that we didn't have before, and so we worked for an extra 3 months on it. We worked with her great team, and we just kept adding and tweaking and having the luxury of time, which you rarely do have in property, simply brought on by COVID.
For the product that you develop, how have you found consumer preferences have shifted over the last 5 to 10 years? What are they really looking for in a high-end development? Is it still the pool and the sauna and the amenities, or is it more the wine room and the automation?
On the one hand, the empty nester or the higher-end consumer, they don't want huge strata levies and body corporate fees. And when you start adding amenities like pools and gyms and all kinds of things, they lead to that. They don't want that. What they do want is they want a great space, which is really maximizing the space ratio and giving them as much amenities and privacy as they can achieve. They really love boutique, smaller buildings rather than large, big towers. They don't like those. They want smaller boutique buildings with a lot of privacy and a lot of great details and a high quality neighborhood that they can feel comfortable in, with not too much overheads or maintenance attached.
It would seem, especially in the eastern suburbs, that there's quite a lot of competition for those same amount of buyers. So what do you do to differentiate your products from the others on the market?
Firstly, it's about the position, and so I try to find great positions to be at. Then it's about great details that surpasses the competition, giving them a product that's not there. So if you look at Tamarama, there is nothing like Calypso in Tamarama. There's some high-end houses that go all the way to $40 million, and there's older apartments. There's nothing like this product, so there's not too much competition. If you want to live in Tamarama, away from Bondi Beach, great views and a stroll down to the beach, it's pretty unique.
And whether it's Calypso or one of your other projects in the east, how do you go about pricing from a square metre perspective?
I think we're pretty reasonable. We simply look at our costs and we look at what margins need to be and price it accordingly. You know, a product can vary by $5,000 or even $10,000 a square metre based on what you're offering. You know, if I could have gone much simpler and just slept on, 13 boxes together and thrown it out to the market, but I don't think that's what the market wants in Tamarama. It's not about price, it's about uniqueness and quality. That's where we excel.
And would it be fair to say that another reason you do these high-end developments is so that it's something you can be proud of as well when you're driving past, as opposed to the dog boxes?
There's a block I developed across the road from Calypso called Wave Apartments in 36 Fletcher Street, and the other day they sold the one better for $30,000 a square meter, which my purchaser told me, he reminded me he bought for $22.50 a square meter. I was so happy he made money. The building still looks great, and all the customers who are buying Calypso look across and see the best looking building in Tamarama other than what Calypso will be is Wave Apartments, and I developed it. So yeah, it's definitely about being proud of what you do. I'm not aiming to be a big mess developer. I really love what I do, and it's about the detail, and it's about creating something that's special, that's for eternity, pretty much.
Now, you've recently moved into the Melbourne market with a project called Zero Gips in Collingwood. Tell us about why you've moved into Melbourne and what you're trying to achieve with that one.
I love Melbourne, and I'm actually working on a couple of other projects in Melbourne, but Zero Gips stands out to be a green, sustainable, boutique commercial building, 6-story building. And it's very different to what else is in Collingwood. If you look at Collingwood, they're huge floor plates. It's almost not that we knew there is COVID, but people want to be nowadays in smaller buildings away from the city, not with the huge floor plates, not with the big elevators and lifts, much more boutique-y. And it was a great site, a great opportunity. I worked with SJB. Tristan Wong, he's a great architect, and we really, I think we've developed a unique product and a unique offer. People can have the options as we go to market. We were on market, we pulled back. We're going back in the new year to pre-lease. We've started construction now, and we're in. We'll be in the process where people can build their own modules, and they can decide if they want 200 meters or 700 meters of form. We'll build accordingly as we go along, certainly for the first period. And it's quite unique, It's also going to have great amenities like a cafe and a concierge on the ground. It's going to have an organic rooftop bar and restaurant on the top. It's very sustainable. We're using clay as the product for the facade and special glazings that block the sun rays. It's a unique product, and it's been very well received. A lot of inquiries. It's looking great, and I think we'll duplicate the offer with another project further down the road.
So you're doing residential in Sydney, but commercial in Melbourne.
The next one is going to be a mixed use, which will have residential and commercial. Yeah.
And are there sectors that you're avoiding, say, industrial, retail?
Or basic. I mean, I'm not looking to go into markets which are basic and simple, where I'm not a specialist. So, there's no point for me to go to, out west or, to lower, demographic markets where they just want a basic product at a price. There's far better people than me to develop those en masse. We're a boutique, high-end developer, so whatever I develop has got that signature to it in terms of location, design, and point of difference.
And how are you finding the finance and lending environment at the moment?
Very good. There's, firstly, the banks are hungry. As long as you've got pre-leasing or pre-sales, they can't operate in another space. There's a lot of products that can't satisfy the debt cover with pre-sales or the pre-leasing multiplier request. So if you've got a product that can deliver that to the banks, they'll grab it, and they're very, very flexible and hungry for business. But there's also a lot of other people playing in the banking and lending area, which whilst they charge you more interest, they offer you a far more flexibility. So there's plenty of money around. Look, I've always worked on my own. I don't have any partners or equity investors, but there's a lot of offers from both sectors to come in with me and let me expand into more projects together and larger ones. So I'm considering that, but so far so good. But I've never had a problem finding finance for the projects. They're out there.
I've got to ask you about planning. There's some groups out there that would complain even if a new picnic table was being installed. How do you get around those noisy groups?
With great difficulty, because council tend to favour the objectors and the complainers and the neighbours. So first of all, we try to work directly with the neighbours by presenting what we're going to do, or to whoever is in our hood, and showing them and asking them if there's any issues of concern. And if there are, we definitely try to address those. And then there's those who just simply don't want any development or any changes. We can't help them. So we then go on to appraise their objection or whatever that is, and show that we're actually there's no impact in what we're doing that ought to concern them. And we just go with the facts. I mean, so far so good. I've always gotten every development approval across, sometimes with more difficulty than others. Certainly in Bronte, there was a whole group who said, save Bronte, hang a developer. It wasn't very nice, but ultimately we won, and ultimately we even got a supermarket going in on the bottom. So, we just answered the allegations and the objections fairly and truly, and at the same time, we amended what it is that we were after in order not to upset any groups, except those that were going to be upset anyway. We didn't worry about them.
What would you say are the biggest challenges facing developers in the current environment?
Getting approvals and fair approvals from council. There's so many sites that offer you a 0.6 to 1 or 0.5 to 1, where there should be a 1 to 1. They've got an existing envelope which is at least 1 to 1, if not more, and yet they say if you knock it down, you lose half. It just doesn't make any sense. So I think council need to work with developers far more openly and far more quickly rather than just let you wait around. I mean, even in Collingwood, it took me an extra year to get all the approvals across. It's ridiculous. And we didn't go to VCAP, we just worked with council and ultimately got it. But the timelines need to improve, council understanding need to improve. I'm happy to work with councils. They're not always happy to work with me, but I'll just keep trying.
That's all you can do. Let's finish off with a couple of questions about Danny as a person. When you look back on your career, both in fashion and property, what are your proudest achievements?
Family is my proudest achievement. I have a very close relationship with my wife and our 2 children, and I guess that's my greatest achievement. Being able to get up in the morning and stay fit, and also take time during the day about thinking about what I can do for someone, for whether it's a person, a friend, a person in need, or the environment, or whatever it is, putting time into doing good. That's something that makes me feel great and proud.
What are the biggest learnings throughout your career?
That you never stop learning.
Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.